How are you?
Good. Thanks for saying yes to come on. I'm glad to finally get to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you also. I'm just like getting the phone situated a little bit so that I can sit down. So just give me 1 second here. Happy
Well,
to, I guess, lend my voice in whatever way that is.
so how about you tell me about yourself? Introduce yourself for the people who don't know you.
My name is Ashling. That's Ash Ling, like bling, but it's Ash Ling. And that's Irish and it means dream. So that is the name of that we go by these days because that's, well, like that's going into D.I.D, I guess, a little bit right off the bat, but there's a reason that we go by Ashling. The short answer is that I'm basically our leader. I'm the most commonly present alter in our system these days. So we go by my name. And not all systems do that. You're free to take a name for any reason you want, but we just sort of center around me, at least for now. So that's why.
How many alters do you currently have?
5
Uh,
that we consider like active, perpetually here alters. Because there's other sort of states that are kind of temporary that can happen with trauma triggers. And those are, technically considered alters, but they're not always present, like the 5 of us are. So I would say that our system is size 5, even though sometimes there can be someone different occasionally, if that makes sense.
yeah, no, I get that. So, if you don't mind me asking, what was it like growing up?
I mean, that's a very loaded question. For anyone that knows anything about dissociative identity disorder, which by the way is also used to be known as multiple personality disorder, uh, it is caused by trauma, by a lot of trauma, repeated, usually over many years, or for the entire duration of childhood, which was pretty accurate for myself. So growing up was basically a combination of like we've got sexual assault, we've got physical assault, we've got non-consensual imprisonment, we've got a lack of friends completely. So that's like social isolation. We've got grooming, we've got, it's just like everything. It's to put it all together into one ball.
So you,
It's the ingredient list, I guess. Like, it's not a happy ingredient list. Like, anyone who thinks the D.I.D is going to be some fun story, and like, it's not.
yeah,
It's not. Like, I try to always be happy nowadays, and that's like part of my growth and my therapy. But like, I'm built on dark things, so
so you've had a hard life.
yeah, I guess I would say so. I try not to like say that because there's always people that suffer more. But I would say that it hasn't been a great childhood, and then it wasn't a great young adulthood either. And it honestly hasn't been great at all, except in the last couple years. And now stuff has finally started to click between all of us. We've all started to get along together. Um, and so things are better.
So how old were you when you first you were starting to figure out you had the people in your mind?
Well, I am one of the people in
Yeah.
his mind, basically. The birth host, that's what we call him, the birth host. Because, like, whoever is hosting the body, controlling it, is called a host. So when we say birth host, we're referring to the first one. And I know that's sort of controversial too. A lot of psychologists don't think that there is an original exactly. And there's something to be said for that, that there's, well, that everyone's personality is constantly shifting and there's no such thing as an original you. But like, still, at least for us, we do have what we consider to be an original self. And his name was David. And that was also the given name of this body. And I didn't actually form until in my earliest like phase of existence was age 6. But I wasn't like the me that I am now. I didn't just like form just like me. Just like any kid, you don't just pop out as an adult. So I was different than I was nowadays. But my first manifestation was at age 6. And then I would say that I really sort of came into focus as who I am as far as personality wise by age 9.
What was it like, learning when everything when you were kind of coming together that you have this thing going on with your mind in DID. What was it like learning about that?
What was it like learning about DID?
Like learning you have DID. What was the whole process?
Learning that I had DID was actually a relief because we've gone most of our life, the majority of it, never knowing what it was. I mean, kind of like if you were born with some sort of disability, and you knew that you're different than everyone, but you don't know what it is because no one's telling you what it is. Like, I grew up where our parents constantly told us that me and the rest of my my alters are all demons, and so that was like a huge reason to continue abusing us. First of all, there's a ton of religious abuse caused by um, well, Jehovah's Witnesses. I'm not going to hold back on saying that they are a cult that is very abusive. And so I was considered a demon. All of my selves were considered demons, except for David, who's just the birth host, and that which was terribly traumatic to us. So we didn't know what DID was. It was never given us like a possibility. In fact, we were taken to a psychologist who was actually like a family member, and so that just further gaslighted us away from the truth. So it was only in adulthood that we found out, oh, this actually has a proper name. Like, we didn't have any way to look it up or just know what it was called. So finding out and then actually being diagnosed was not a terrible, tragic thing like it may be for some systems where they're like, oh my God, I have these alters, I've got to deal with it. No, we knew that we existed. We had been fighting for a long time. And so actually finding out about what DID is and like how the different parts of a system form, why they form, how they can like find a path of like, it's called functional multiplicity, where we all get along instead of fighting. That was all just a system of like relief for us. It wasn't terrible to find out. It was just cathartic to find out and to have that.
Do you think DID is like a problem in your guys' life? Like, is it a struggle to have?
I would say the same thing could be asked of any type of mind. Like, everyone is struggling. It doesn't matter if you're a singlet, which is our term for someone that doesn't have multiple consciousnesses. It doesn't matter if you're a singlet or not. Like, everyone struggles. And so I do personally feel like DID, the fact that it's called dissociative identity disorder is kind of annoying because, like, yes, it can easily be problematic, but like, I'm in a good place right now. I am I'm doing fine in life. I have friends, socializing. I still make mistakes, but everyone does. But the point is, like, we are happy in here. We all are. And so it's not a disorder to us anymore than being trans, which we also are. And like trans, like bigots will say that's a disorder, but it's only a disorder if you are maligning it, if you're happy with it, if that is your identity and you're happy to be that, and you're no longer having any social issues or anything like that, you're not a harm to yourself or anyone, it's sort of not fair to call it a disorder still. Trans isn't a disorder, it's an identity. And I think the same thing can be true of this. Yes, it is caused by trauma, but we're happy now. So let us just enjoy our life. We're not asking for any sort of special privileges. We're just wanting to be accepted and seen and loved the same way as anyone. So I think that it's kind of disingenuous to call it always a disorder.
You said you don't like the disorder. How would you describe or call it?
Well, the like common, I guess, parlance, if you like are on Reddit or something, is to call it plurality. It's just like the state of being plural for whatever reason. Because like dissociative identity disorder is not the only way to access other types of consciousness. If you meditate, you can access like another type of consciousness, or if you're like invoking demons or something, or if you're doing certain types of hallucinogens or drugs or something. There's many ways throughout all history that people have accessed different forms of consciousness in themselves. Heck, even if you have like a stroke or something, sometimes another consciousness comes out, or sometimes surgeries. Like, there's many paths to plurality. Honestly, I think that everyone has that potential in them. Like I said, through meditation, I think a lot of people can access like a different part of themselves, whether that's age regressed or whether that's actually like a different like alter ego or something like that. I think that it's part of the human condition that the brain is very flexible, so that it's not like it's magic that like trauma happened and all of a sudden there's multiple consciousnesses. No, it's not. It's a thing any brain can do with the right push. So I think that calling it plurality would be a lot more like a lot more inclusive and a lot more fair rather than just saying, oh, it's a disorder because it's different. I would call it plurality if I could. And as far as the condition itself, like my condition, I would call it, well, dissociative identity condition, instead of disorder, because it is a condition. It's not necessarily bad.
So it's still like not normal, but it's not like really a bad thing necessarily.
Not necessarily a bad thing. It's just like having, like I keep relating it to being trans, but because I am trans, and there's a lot of crossover between the two as far as there being like an identity choice there, as far as just saying that I'm happy with this being me, and so I think yeah, calling it plurality would be better.
You guys all like technically are different people. Who do you all have your own like thoughts, dreams, like stuff that you want to do in the world?
Yeah, that's a huge reason why we used to fight for so long. And I'm not saying that we're not fighting anymore. I would just say that we're more like a happy family now. We all have our own different like ideas on how we wish to live. We have different genders, we have different preferences as far as like something as simple as food or something as complex as our belief in religion, like there can be huge differences between us. And so we're inevitably similar in a lot of ways just because we're sharing the same physical experiences. But despite that, we are very different people. And so it can often be like the reason that I'm kind of considered our leader is because I'm good at like essentially compromising all the time. Like every single choice that I make, even in this conversation I'm having with you, I'm having to listen to everyone and make sure that what I'm saying is at least not in opposition to anyone, that it's a good compromise for everybody to hear all this. And I've just done it for so long that now I'm just kind of used to that. Um, so there's always like differences between us that it can be very profound.
So everybody's able to kind of talk to each other inside the mind.
Yeah, I mean, it varies on like how it's done. A lot of the times it can just be like an emotional sort of sensation, like feeling someone else's gut, like instinct, I guess you could say, response to something. If they see something and they really like it or they really don't like it or it makes them sad, I'll feel that emotion off of them before I feel anything else. That's kind of unconscious between us, I guess, to feel each other's emotions. And then as far as like the actual communication, we can send each other either visual like imagination, I guess you could say, sort of things, or actually just words, which are basically just imagining words too. I mean, it's imagination regardless. We're just sending imagined like communications to each other. So that can either be visually or through words. And I will say that we don't use words that often internally. Like we usually just prefer just to send visuals. It's just like it's more, it just gets more through usually rather than speaking. But yeah,
So like whatever was on somebody's gut, you kind of just kind of picked it. It's kind of like a signal, like you picked it up, kind of. Does that make sense?
it's probably not too different than how people that are like physically around each other can see each other's like facial responses, like what someone's feeling if you show them a picture of something horrible and their face changes, they're not into that. Or if they realize that's their kink, then they're into that. Like it's kind of like that, like you can tell, but it's not a facial response. It's just that I'm actually feeling their emotions, which is a lot deeper, I guess you could say, in a way, because it can really affect me in ways that are a little odd, because like even if it's something that I like, if one of the others is like really present and like right next to me, and they're feeling that they don't like it, they can actually sort of temporarily convince me that I don't like it just because it bleeds into me so much, because it's kind of like, I guess, a form of telepathy, like we're always influencing each other.
Over TikTok, Reddit, stuff like that. I've heard people talk about like they some of their alters are like people like who are mythical creatures, or they're different time zones. Is that like a real thing, or is that just like something made up?
Did you say different time zones? What did you say?
It's like different years.
Oh yeah, I mean, DID is, it's unfortunate that it's often like fake claimed. Like people will say you don't have DID, you're just faking it, like for attention or something. And a lot of that is if they are public about that. Like we're not public about that very much because we don't want to deal with that sort of nonsense of people saying that we're fake just because we're talking about it. But like alters are formed from trauma, and that trauma usually manifests through the lens of the person Like, basically, what I'm saying is like, there is a need to survive, and a different role has to be taken on by the brain in order to survive. So, if there is, like, for instance, a role model around the child that may be a cartoon character that's like a superhero, like Wonder Woman, that you may have Wonder Woman form as an alter. And when that alter manifests, that now they are strong and they can fight back against abuse. But that doesn't mean that Wonder Woman is fake to them. Like, that Wonder Woman, of course, is not literally Wonder Woman, but is an actual created consciousness in their mind now. So, like, it may sound silly to say, oh, yeah, I have an alter who's a dragon, but that was necessary. And that's the case for me. Like, Red, the physical protector of our system, does actually have a form where she is a dragon. That's whenever she is actually needing for us to fight against someone who is assaulting us. She takes the form of a dragon. And like, she doesn't now, like, now she has a much more human form. And that was actually through therapy. She began as a dragon. And that might sound silly to people. And so we don't, of course, mention that right off the bat. Hey, what if he is a dragon? Like, that's stupid sounding. But that's because, we were a hurting child. Like, there was no, it wasn't even conscious. It was just a thing. It just happened in us. So we can't really be like made, or we shouldn't be made fun of for that. And, all of us, all of our identities, although we come from these places that may sound fantastical and magical in like completely, fantasy book ways, that's our real history. Like, when we look back, and I look back at my childhood, I used to be this banshee like creature. And that's just like, it's just real to me. I have memories of being that person.
How do you deal if one of you switches, or I don't know, I don't know if you have littles, but what if they come out? Like, how do you deal with that?
I guess it's kind of self-aware of you to, or not self-aware, but like cognizant of you to mention littles. Yeah, I would say that most DID systems have some form of age regression at some point, because whatever shreds of innocence that we have usually tend to like get locked away somewhere else where they're out of touch. I guess you could say like the last bits of my innocence from being ripped away from me, that they went into someone else. And so yes, that is a younger self. And they can often be problematic because they have the personality type of someone that's, immature and of a younger age. But, the best way to, I guess, deal with that is, I don't want to say through therapy, but I mean, it is like, you just have to integrate. Like, we get along with our younger self. We accept her, we treat her with respect, we don't treat her like she's less than us. And now she understands to not try and take host forcibly away from us, especially at inopportune times. But more important than that is that, uncontrolled switches can happen where if someone does something or says something or seems triggering in some way, even if we saw someone that looks very similar or does like something that like reminds us of our abuse, that might trigger one of our other selves to the front when we're not expecting it. And also through therapy, you can learn to really control that, to really try and block against losing. Like, I'm doing my best not to lose host at any point during this conversation, because that would not be very, would not be very good socially to do that. And so that's part of multiple. That's part of being, having functional multiplicity, is to achieve that, where you're controlling your switches a bit more like voluntarily, rather than letting it just be an involuntary thing that just takes over. The whole point is that it's a controlled process now, as much as possible, trying to avoid any of those unwanted switches. But besides that, to just get along with everyone. That's the important part. Everyone needs to feel loved and seen and accepted. And everyone needs to agree that I'm leading this conversation. But like later on, in my private life, like at home, we can switch whenever we want. We don't feel like we're stressed. We're not bothering anyone. So it's just everyone being aware of, social politeness, I guess you could say.
Are there any like specific triggers that you have, like that could make someone randomly come out, or like I don't know, stress or something like that?
Well, there are. I mean, I'm not going to publicly talk about them because
Well,
they're
that's
usually like I mean, I don't want anyone to like actually try and be malicious enough to use it against us on purpose.
No, I understand.
But like, I mean, they do exist.
Yeah.
But I have tried my hardest to shut those triggers down, and they can be very difficult because they sneak up unexpectedly. Like, because there's so much of my past that I can't remember. I can only remember maybe like 40% of childhood. And I actually remember quite a bit of it, more than like the rest of us. But I still have huge swaths of it that are just completely lost to amnesia. But like the body can still remember these things. Like if there is a triggering thing that even if I can't remember it, even none of us can remember it, if it happened in our past and was part of our torture, that it'll still trigger us, even if we don't understand why yet. So those can be like difficult, is the unexpected triggers. But like I said, through a lot of therapy and a lot of meditation and a lot of just focusing on like centering ourselves, and agreeing that, in these social situations, we're all just going to keep passing host to Ashling. And sometimes that's not the case. Sometimes we'll have someone else host, but it's through that sort of, group effort that we can try and prevent that from happening.
What do you think the most asked question you get is?
The most asked question. Um, Honestly, I think the most asked question, weirdly, is how old I am, like how old my consciousness is compared to the body. I think people are always really interested in that because like it always surprises people because especially if you see me at clubs and such, like I'm always bouncing around, like literally bouncing around. And it's like jumping constantly for hour after hour after hour at clubs, and I do that every weekend. And I seem to have like no end to the energy in me, and that is because like as far as like me, my consciousness is always going to like exist basically at the mid 20s is the way that I personally see myself. Like everyone else in the system also sees me at that age, that I am a 22, 23-year-old woman. That's how I was created, and that's how I will always be. I don't actually age internally because everyone always sees me that way. If I look in the mirror, I actually see my own reflection, like behind the body, I see myself as always being 23. So I have quite a lot of energy, and I guess it can be weird to people because like they'll be dancing with me, having a good time, and they'll ask how old I am, and I'll be like, "Oh yeah, I'm 40." And it's always like people are just like, "Like how the fuck are you 40?" And you're like acting like that. And it's I guess you can say that I'm sort of one of our age regressed selves in a way, but I'm not like age regressed to a huge extent. I'm mid 20s age regressed, so it still is surprising to people. And so they always, oh, not always, but they commonly ask like, "How old are you?" And I'm like, "Well, manifested at age 6, but I was always around this age." So age is a weird thing to us because we have different like ages that we manifested and then different ages that we see each other as. And then of course we have the physical age of the body. So age is just like a really weird, convoluted thing.
So is age like changing for all alters, or is it like different for everybody?
Well, like I said, there's the first point at which one of us manifested, our birthday, you could say,
Okay.
is different for everybody. And then like who we actually are visually to each other and like to ourself. Like I said, I always see myself as a 23-year-old woman. Now I know that I'm in this body, but that's just how I was created. That's how I see myself. And everybody has like a different sort of thing as far as how they see themselves. Like one of my others, Abilene, she's actually the age of the body, but created at a different time. So she has a different birthday, she has a different age, and everybody has that going on, and then the physical age of the body. So there's a lot of different numbers to throw around. We're of course always very, very well aware that the body is physically 40 now, but it doesn't change who we feel like when we're hosting, and that can very, very much impact how people perceive us. Like there's a lot to be said for the fact that I can't help but, it's not that I'm believing that I'm 23. It's just that I just sort of am consciously. And so it kind of gives people that impression. Like it's such a force of character that it actually makes people see me as younger than I physically am because I genuinely am internally consciously that age. So Yeah, it's a complicated thing.
So trick and time is pretty much just a tricky thing for you guys.
Time's a trippy thing for many reasons. Most of our childhood is a blur, and honestly, a lot of adulthood was a blur too. So in many ways, it's like, well, we haven't really lived that many years if you consider how many years of like consciousness we actually have. Some of us haven't even been around that long. You know, like Desire's only been around for a couple of years. So for him, he's technically a 2 year old, but he doesn't act like a 2 year old because, of course, he has access to, the faculties of this brain to be able to know how to speak and stuff. So that's a weird subject, like, well, he's two, but he has the capacity to consent as an adult. But then again, you have Catharsis, who's much older, but she's also age regressed. So honestly, I don't give as much capacity to consent to her. I actually will tell people who know us, hey, if Kat said to do something, then maybe don't listen to it because she's younger. So like, it's a weird thing, like you can have an alter who is technically over 18 years old, but that is perpetually acting like they're younger because they're a little. And then you can have an alter who's only 2 years old, but they act like a very mature, wise adult. And so it's so complicated to factor all of these things in. And I
So
guess that's one of the reasons that some people like to just throw their hands up in the air and say that it's all fake, but it's not. It's just a complicated sort of condition.
so age is like a spectrum.
I mean, as far as system age, yeah. I'm not saying that like physical age is
Yeah,
a spectrum.
of
I'm very
course.
well aware of
Yeah,
physical age and physical age of consent. I'm not saying that that's a spectrum, let's be clear. But I'm
yeah.
saying that like within our brain, it is a spectrum because it's just complicated. The reasons that we formed, the reasons that we exist and that influence us and the sort of the maturity levels that we're capable of having. And we all do grow. That's the thing. It's not like just because like Kat did start off as a very age regressed self, and she was very immature for many years when she first like began. But like as things have progressed, she has become a lot more mature. Like she's always going to be a little, but she is also a lot more self aware of those limitations that she has. She's a lot more able to just sort of confide in us sometimes. And so, in a way, she's kind of like matured, even though she's always sort of stuck being younger. So, we're always growing, even if we are stuck at these ages. We grow to the best of our ability, just like everyone. Gosh, that sounded like a mess of an explanation. Oh my gosh.
And weird enough, I actually understood it.
That was such a messy explanation though. Like it's I'll admit it's weird.
We're
This is
talking
why it
about.
was such a no, I'm saying this is why I said it was such a relief to actually get a diagnosis, because to actually be able to look at the DSM-5 guideline, which is like the official like psychological book at it, and to like have my therapists actually talk to me and be like, okay, these are some of the steps you can take in very different, different like ways you can work to better yourselves. My gosh, that was such a better approach than not knowing at all, like not even knowing why we're different, or not knowing anything except I guess that we're just demons, according to religion, we're just demons. Like that was a shitty thing. It didn't help us at all. And given how complicated it can be to understand like all of these differences, it's nice to have sort of an official diagnosis and an official path. And I'm not saying that I agree with all that psychology says. I think there are some things they get wrong, but there's definitely a lot of good that can come out of therapy. So yeah,
What does it feel like? What does it feel like going back in the mind, or like how would you describe it?
I would say that that feels a lot like a weird sliding sensation. I guess it's. I use the analogy. Now, this isn't like how it feels, but I use the analogy of like a car, where a car is being driven by multiple, not being driven by multiple people, but there's multiple people in the car, and like at any point, the car can pull over and you can change drivers. You can do that in the car without anyone getting out, even if someone like slides to the back and then someone like finagles their way to the driver's seat and gets in and then they start driving again. And that's kind of like what a switch is. It's like we're all here, we're all present. They can all hear every word that I'm saying right now. They're just not driving. But if I do step away from host, then it feels kind of like this world becomes more like a dream. Like when you're dreaming and you know that you're dreaming, for people who can lucid dream, or even for people that can't and just remember the sensation of dreaming, like in a dream, you can still feel things. You can look at things, you can see colors, you can feel objects. Many people can feel pain in dreams. You can do anything in a dream that you can do in real life. But most people will say that it feels less real than reality. Like you can feel all these things, but they're not quite as vivid. Like they're a little desaturated. Like when you look at someone, yeah, you know it's them, but they're not as fully solid as if you were awake and looked at them yourself. Like it's a little hazy, and that's what it's like. It's like reality becomes more like a dream to me if I'm not in the body. Like I can see everything, but it's just not 100%. When I first hosted for the very first time, I was so blinded by how bright it is, because I actually never fully hosted until age 37, which was pretty recently. And the first time that I did, my God, the sun is so much brighter than I ever thought it was, because I'd only ever seen it like from the back. And so it was almost like always seeing like a dream, a dreamy, hazy vision of like how bright the outdoors is. Or I guess it's kind of like if you see the outdoors through like a movie, you know, if you're watching someone in a movie go outside, you're like, oh yeah, well, of course it's bright. But it doesn't blind you because the TV isn't capable of doing that. But if you actually go outside, then it will blind you. And that's what it was like for me. I was watching life through a TV set. And then when I finally stepped into the body and actually fully took it, holy heck, like the sun is just so bright in this world. I still think about it sometimes, and that's maybe one of the reasons that I'm so nocturnal, is that the sun is just so bright to me. I never had to deal with that until I finally hosted. So it's definitely interesting to switch back and forth. I guess you could say it gives us a perspective on reality that's maybe a little bit different than most people, because we can see it in a more dreamy way sometimes.
So is the sun still like really bright like you first saw it?
Yes and no. One of us, Abilene, she's actually the only one of us that likes the sun. And so if we are outside and it gets bright past a certain point, it will literally, I can't look at it. Like to the degree it's kind of ridiculous for people, just because I'm not used to it that much. I'm used to it more now, but it'll still bother me greatly. And if it gets past a certain point, it's almost one of our unconscious like triggers that Abilene will host, because she's the only one of us that likes the sun. She can bear it and it's not painful to her. And so she just sort of becomes host, whether we're wanting her to or not, unless we really try hard not to, which is quite difficult. So when she's hosting, we're actually fine with the sun. And that might sound really weird to people, but that's just, I mean, like I said, D.I.D is strange, you know, like, and there's case studies on how strange it is that, like, and I'm not saying in this system, but there can be alters that have an allergic reaction to something like honey, but then other alters don't have that allergy. But it's like an actual allergic reaction with like the hives, and like the body is physically responding. Like there's a lot of mind over matter that our bodies can do to us that's like way more powerful than I think most people think is possible. Like that one of us can just be basically so okay with the sun that she can just like go outside on a bright sunny Florida day and stare into the sun and be like, this is nice. And then the rest of us are dying if we just look out of the window. But it's not role playing to us. It's just like where our mind, our consciousness is actually affecting our body to the degree that it is just real. Nowadays, we do better with the sun because, you know, Abilene will just come up to the front if it's too bright outside and we can't deal with it. But like me personally, I still don't like the sun that much. You know, I have nice sunglasses for that, nice big thick ones.
For anyone who misrepresents D.I.D, like they misthink what it is, they say you're faking it or something, psychological, and don't believe in it. What would you say to that?
As far as like split, it actually took a long time for us to watch that movie because we were so like it made us cringe thinking about watching it. Now I'm going to say that we actually responded a lot better to that than I thought we were going to. Of course, it is over the top. It is ridiculous. Like I mean, like this guy's like taking shotgun blasts, and like. I think that's probably past our limits. I don't think that any one of us alters is capable of just taking shotguns to the chest because we perceive ourselves to be, immune to bullets. So it's of course like a little ridiculous. But then, just the psychological portrayal is always problematic because they like to portray, like movies love to portray DID in like the most psychopathic way possible because that's attention grabbing. It's like, oh boy, there's always this, like a serial killer just waiting to burst out at any second, and that it's just like completely uncontrollable. And I have said that uncontrolled switches can happen, but that's as a survival mechanism. That's not, oh, because here's the uncontrolled killer. It's because you did something that reminded us that we're about to get like beaten, and so now we have a survival response come out. It's something that's sad, not something that's aggressive. I wish that it wasn't portrayed like it is in media. And they do the same thing for many different mental conditions, like such as people with bipolar disorder. Oh boy, is that maligned in social media. For instance, schizophrenia. That's hugely maligned in social media. Schizophrenia is just, a serial killer condition as far as movies are concerned. But it's not like that. Everything is complex. There's reasons for it to exist. And a lot of these reasons have to do with like just surviving trauma. It's not about trying to hurt people. And so I wish that that was a bit more like aware. I honestly wish that plurality was part of the LGBT flag because, it's a complex thing. And there's actually a lot of overlap between trans people and plural people. I have met so many systems since becoming part of the trans community, more than like I guess the statistics would say. And I don't think any of them are faking. I think that it's because a lot of people in the queer community end up being abused in childhood, quite a large percentage. And so quite a large percentage end up as also having some degree of dissociation. And it's just underreported. So I think that like it should be a little bit more. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little off topic on this, but like I
Take your
think that the
time.
media portrayal is not good. That I wish that there was a positive portrayal of plurality, and that if it was part of the LGBT flag, that would be great because it is literally dissociative identity disorder. Like it has to deal with our identity. So like all of the rest of LGBT has to deal with personal identity. Myself deal with identities. So it would be nice to be represented in a good way, in a healthy way, so that people don't just look at me and say, oh, you're a bunch of demons. Like I'm actually sort of like owning the label nowadays because I've just heard it so much. But, that was obviously very hurtful as a child to just hear that and to not have no explanation other than that this is a scary thing. So I wish that it was portrayed better.
How would you respond to like people saying like the logic? I don't know how to pronounce it. Like
Psychological.
yeah, like people who study psychological studies, like they don't believe in like DID, and like how would you respond to that?
If you want my most, I guess you could say it's not really a compromise of an answer, but it's just one that sort of challenges their antagonism as being pointless. It's that if you want to say that I am delusional, that I'm actually just one consciousness and that I'm just like completely crazy to the point that I think I have other selves, but I actually don't. It's actually just the birth host David all along, that I don't exist as Ashling. I'm a fake self. If you want to say that I'm delusional to that degree, you can believe that. But either way, like if David has deluded himself to the point, so completely to the point that even alone that it's an inescapable delusion that Ashling is always this force present in his life as this ever-present delusion that he can't get rid of, that always like what I'm saying is like it doesn't matter even if I'm real or not. Like it's still real. Basically, I think, therefore I am. It's like a very Descartes sort of thing. Like I can't prove that I'm real or that I'm some sort of complex hallucination. And it doesn't matter to me because like I have my own thoughts and feelings. I exist. How can I ever prove that I exist? How can I prove that like any of my selves exist or that we're separate? Like we can only ever just say it. Like you can think that we're fake and we can never like say we never prove that we're not fake, but nobody can prove that. Like if I asked you, how do I know that you're actually like really you? How do we know that? Like, I mean, how does your consciousness prove itself as being sentient? Like, it doesn't. It's just a thing that someone says that they are. And so you have to believe that. If you don't believe it, well, then you're just choosing not to believe in something that can never be proven or disproven. Like someone's sense of identity, of self, is sacred. Like nobody can take that away from you. Nobody can prove it or disprove it. So I'll say that it's a frustrating topic when people try to fake claim us because I can't prove it, nor can I disprove it. I can only say that it doesn't affect us. No matter what you do to us, no matter what you say or think or deny us, that we will always exist just as much as your consciousness will always exist. It doesn't matter if someone says, you know what, you're actually delusional about who you think you are.
What about the people on like TikTok and Instagram like faking D.I.D? Like, there's a bunch of people and you literally search it up, half of them are faking it. Like, how do you feel about that?
I always treat people as though they are correct. I mean, basically, I take people at their word. I use this analogy so much, but going into the trans side of this as an analogy, the analogy would be people that are cross dressers, where they're still male, but they're just dressing as a woman, and that's not like a slur. That's actually what they're doing. So that would be kind of the equivalent for people that are kind of faking DID. They're kind of like the equivalent of cross dressers in a way. They're kind of doing it on purpose. They're not actually like having that condition, but they're just choosing to do it voluntarily. But I still don't hate them for it. Like I can get really annoyed if they're doing it in a way that is negative, that they're really just like doing the same thing so that like media does and portraying it in ways that are psychopathic on purpose just to draw attention. That can be really frustrating and I'll be mad at them on principle for that. But I don't have a problem with cross dressers, and I don't have a problem with people that I guess fake DID because number one, I don't know for sure if they're faking a lot of the times. I know that there are people who, well, it really seems like it, but I'm not going to say that to them because I have heard that so many times in my life that I'm faking it, and that's bullshit. So I'm not going to ever like perpetuate that abuse to someone and say, oh, you know what, you're faking it, haha. I'm never going to say that. Never going to say that. Now, if they admit it, then okay, well, then obviously they just admitted it. But if they don't admit it, if they say that they have DID, I'm just going to act like they do, even if it seems silly, even if it seems like the most ridiculously obvious that they're faking it. I'll be polite because as long as they're being polite about it, I don't give a fuck. Like, oh, sorry for cussing, but like, I just don't have time for that kind of negativity in my life. Like I'm trying to just survive as a system. I'm not going to sit there and try and gatekeep other systems, you know? So I just don't want to perpetuate any sort of like viciousness because I know how vicious it is to have my entire existence being called fake. You don't know how hurtful that is. That, I am a woman named Ashling and I have my entire existence denied. Like that's wildly hurtful that people say that I'm just David. It denies the root of me. It's almost like if imagine if I had a twin sister, or I guess it could be even like a fraternal twin. Not yeah, is it fraternal? I think it's called. But like I had a twin sister, let's say, and I grow up with her. In fact, always together we're seen. And then at some point they just say that I'm fake, that only my sister is real. Like that's such stupid. Like it doesn't make any sense, Like I am as different from David as a sister. Like we've seen each other, we've grown up with each other. I'm not fake, and to be called that is just so hurtful on such a wild level that I'm never going to do that to anyone else. No matter how much I think that may be the case, I will never, ever, ever cross that boundary and say that they are fake ever.
This question depends. Have you ever thought about kids in the future?
No,
No.
honestly, no. It's just like I am very well aware of how bad childhood can be. And although I wouldn't be abusive, I know how abusive the world can be to a child. Because like that's a huge source of my abuse wasn't from like I did get abused. Like I do have parental abuse. I do have a lot of family abuse, tons of it, but that's not the limit of it. There was a ton of abuse at school, by students, by teachers. Like it just sort of perpetuated itself. It sucks that's like when people see someone that's hurting, that a lot of people will just sort of dogpile on that. and just like add to it. And that's an unfortunate part of the world, even to this day. It's not like, oh boy, I just go out and I get, loved from people. No, like the world is a cruel place. Like there's a huge part of me that wishes I could have a child and know that it would be what I wish it to be, something beautiful. But I know that I would have a problem in two different ways because I would be trying to essentially like live the perfect childhood through my own childhood. Like I would want to fix my childhood through them. I would have expectations for them maybe that they don't live up to in my eyes just because I'm trying to sort of fix my own trauma through them, which I may not be I would try not to do that to them, not to try and project into them, but it might happen anyway. And then besides that, it's like I said, I can't give them a perfect life, and it's going to hurt a lot if they end up suffering. Like I'm going to feel guilty to a degree that I don't know if I can ever really recover from. If I have a child and they live through trauma, it's going to fuck me. So I just can't.
Yeah.
But
if you want, I can cut this out. Just let me know.
No, you don't have to. No, it's fine. Like people need to know. Like it's not.
Okay.
And it's not a joke. Like our childhood is not something that will ever really ever heal from. So having a child is like asking us to reach into the worst parts of our life. This is why I can't I don't go to places that have kids a lot. I go to nightclubs because children just remind me of so much.
No, I understand.
Fuck, I don't know. It's just the waterworks just instantly. I'm sorry. It's just like there's just so much in that part of my life, and I just can't. So like, are you kidding? Like I literally am crying like this just talking about it for all of 30 seconds. So can you imagine me actually living, trying to raise a child? Fuck it, I would be such a mess. I know that, and I know that there are many systems that get to points where they're strong enough to handle that, and that's beautiful for them. We're all different, and I'm happy to back them, to support them. I really doubt that, even though I do have a motherly instinct and I do wish that I could be a mother that I never had, basically. I was never hugged by my mother, and I'd love to give that to someone, but it's just got so much weight on it psychologically that I just don't feel like that would be good for me therapeutically. I think that I'm happy in life right now, and I shouldn't complicate that with bringing a new life into the world who, number one, didn't ask to be brought into the world, and then didn't ask to have a parent who's so conflicted like that. Do I really want to be crying every time I see my child because I see trauma, my own trauma reflected in them? That's shit. So probably won't have children, but I don't mind systems that do. I'm good for them.
If you need to take a minute, I'm fine for if you need to take a minute. It's up to you.
I'm okay.
You sure?
Yeah.
Well, we only have 2 questions left, so
Okay.
the only
Sorry for crying on stream. I really thought I was going to be able not to, but it happened. And I told you there's sensitive questions and they sneak up. This is why I told you I don't know what questions are too sensitive because you didn't mean anything by that. It just happens. It doesn't have to be something that you think, oh, this is the sensitive question. It's like you're just asking about kids and that triggers it. So
second to last question is, what about a job like with having D.I.D? They might pop out once in a while. Like, is it like not so hard for you, or how do you like go through a job?
Here's something to digest about that, and that is that for many systems, like for my system, we all have different voices. Yeah. So we're extremely, it's extremely obvious to people that we have switched. And I will say that like those voices are kind of a voluntary choice at first, or were kind of, but they're not now. Because like there was a time that I was drugged at a nightclub, and that was about a year ago. And even when I was like drugged and in a almost unconscious state on the sidewalk, people talking to me would hear this voice talking back. Now, obviously, this is not like the natural, I guess you could say, like the biological voice of this body. But regardless, it's so ingrained in my identity that even at a point where I'm almost about to fall unconscious from a hostile drug, that this voice is still present. And so it's become a part of me. But originally, it was kind of a choice. Like, one of us that's male is like, okay, I'm going to take the lower part of the voice. And then sorry, I'm of course taking the upper part of the voice.
It's fine. Yeah.
And like some of us also have different, like accents and stuff. Well, the accents are kind of start sort of as a choice, but not really. It's like it becomes part of us. But what I'm getting at with all of this is that a lot of systems don't have any tells like that. Like we did that on purpose because we wanted to communicate to people. We were like, we're going to be out in public as a system and we want people to know all of us. We want this to not be something that's stigmatized. We want to raise awareness about it. So, yes, it would be very fortuitous to people to be able to identify us based on our voice, at least. And now it's built into us. But for many systems, they never do that. So when they switch, they sound exactly the same. They look exactly the same. So they may switch and you don't know that they have switched, other than, you know what? Cindy's acting real weird today. Like I asked her like if she wanted to go to Sonic and she said she fucking hates Sonic. And that's weird because I know that she loved onion rings just like last week. And you might think that doesn't make any sense. And it's because you're not talking to her anymore. You just don't know it. Like D.I.D is a condition that can be hidden, it can be invisible. And this is why I'm trying to raise awareness, because it's like I said, when I got into the queer community publicly as a system, I have found system after system after system where they come to me and they say, you are inspiring as far as me like coming out and like, or at least just saying that I can be a system around my friends, maybe not publicly, because a lot of people are so afraid of the the backlash from that because it's so demonized. And so they can't publicly be out, but they'll say, at least I'm with my partner or with my best friend or with a few of my friends, I'm letting them know that actually there's more than just me. And that's beautiful because their best friend might not have known their whole life, even because they hide it out of fear. Like, as a system, one of the first things we learn to do is to hide the fact that we're different. Like I said, growing up, we were all called demons. If we were at all apparent that someone was different in the body, that's a demon and needs to be beaten out of us. So we learned really quickly to hide that difference. So a lot of systems go through similar trauma where, yeah, they start off like acting totally different and they learn, well, you better pretend to at least be sort of like the same person. For a sense of safety. And we do that still to this day. That's why we center around me, Ashling. And that's why I haven't switched, is because I'm honestly afraid of that. Because, like, if we do publicly switch and we don't feel like we're very comfortable, there's a lot of people will just instantly start having, like, not good expressions and act weird towards us. And it's just incredibly uncomfortable. So, for many systems, you don't know that they have switched. You don't even know that they're a system, other than just, wow, they have a wildly different personality all of a sudden. And you'll never know unless they tell you, which is why I think that plurality is underreported, that it's a lot more than like the 1% that science and statistics says that exists. This reminds me of like with homosexuality, when gay rights were first coming to the front in America, a lot of the backlash was that, why are we focusing so much on like something that only 0.01% of the public has? That's what people said, like that gay people, there's almost no gay people in America. Why do we care if there's a few people that are weird this way? Like, we shouldn't be catering to them. There's barely any gay people. It wasn't that. It wasn't that there was barely any gay people. It's that gay people were too scared to say that they were gay in public. So, of course, if you do a statistical research on it and ask people, hey, are you gay? By the way, it's against the law and you'll go to jail for it. Obviously, they're going to say no. Now, D.I.D isn't against the law, but it is still considered horribly like debilitating. It's considered a disorder. It's considered a handicap. It's considered evil to many people. So obviously, if you just ask someone, hey, do you have D.I.D? They're going to say no. It's underreported. So to answer your question, big long answer of mine, you just won't know. Like, there's a lot of them that'll never tell you that they are a system if they don't feel comfortable, because it's not always
But
obvious.
thank you for all your answers.
Yeah.
It was great to meet you. I think that was very interesting to learn about.
You're
Before
welcome.
before you go, for every guest, I always have this thing where you get 15 seconds to share a website, a company, anything you would like to share about. And go.
Well, I have a new coven that I've just started with like my spirituality, and it also does go into plurality, and it's called Black Moon Lilithianism. It's actually what this represents. So feel free to look me up on my page if you want to know more about that. Yes.